The above is a system of the questions that we have been provided with. And so these are the questions that we have. Let's start with question number 1. We will answer one question. Yeah. Vivian, read the question number 1. Number 1. A. Hello, Vivian. Are you able to read question number 1A? All right. So the question number 1A reads, a farmer grows a bushel of wheat and sells to a miller for 10 kwacha. The miller turns the wheat into flour and then sells the flour to a baker for 30 kwacha. The baker uses the flour to make bread and sells the bread to households for 60 kwacha. So the households eat the bread. What is the value added in each stage of production? What is the GDP? So this is the question that we are addressing this evening. We want to know the value that was added at each stage of production. So this is what is called the value added approach to the calculation of GDP. Remember last time I talked about the different methods that are used to calculate GDP. Okay. So let me use this table. Let me tabulate this answer. Stage. These are stages of production. The value of the stage and the value added. Okay. So the first stage that we have is what? We have a farmer at the first stage who makes wheat and sells it to a mill at 100. So the value that is made is say 10, sorry. So there is a farmer here. The value that he makes is 10. Okay, that's the value of the wheat. And he turns the wheat into flour and then sells it to the baker for 30. So we have the baker here. We have got the miller. The miller has converted the flour into the has converted wheat into the flour and sells it to the baker for 30. Then the baker will sell the bread. We'll make bread using wheat and sell the bread at how much? At 60. And then the bread will be consumed. So far, are you able to see what I'm doing and are you able to see what I'm writing?
Actually, you are a bit fast.
Okay. Let me go back to the question. Here is a question. The question number A says, a farmer grows a bushel of wheat and he sells the wheat to the miller for 10 kwacha. Okay. Then the miller will turn the wheat into flour and then sell the flour to a baker for 30 kwacha. Then the baker will use the flour to make bread and he will sell the bread to the households for 60 kwacha. Then the households will eat the bread. What is the value added in each stages of production? So we want to establish the value that has been made at each stage of production. So the first stage, we have the miller or the farmer who makes the wheat and the value thereof is 10. The flour is sold by the miller at the value of 30. And then the baker will make the bread and sell it at the value of 60. Have you understood the question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. So now we want to establish the value that has been added at each stage of production. So let me be quick to indicate to the class that at the first stage of production, the value, the market value is equal to the value added. So that's why the value added is 10 at the first stage of production. Is that clear? So the value that the farmer has added, this being the first stage of production, is 10 as well. Is that clear?
It is.
Then the second stage, it will be 30 minus 10, which is the previous stage. This will give us 20. The third stage will be 60 minus 30. It will give us another third. So the total value added will be 60. Now, you may just be wondering, why is the price of bread 60? Because you are the final, element in the, or the final unit in the production process. You are the consumer, you are the end user. You may just be wondering, why is it 10? Forgetting that that bread, for it to be bread, the raw material has passed through different stages of production. Okay? The first stage thereof, it was just wheat. And so the price of wheat is cheaper because it's just mere wheat. There is no value that has been added more than that. By the time we convert the wheat to flour, now flour can have many uses. Then we add some value. So the price will go up. So get the message here is that at each stage of production, the price goes up because of value addition. So we have now established the value that has been added at each stage of production. And this is one of the approaches used in calculating GDP, the value added approach. Is that clear? So what is GDP? Which is the second question. GDP is equal to the 60 because we say that GDP is the final value. And by the way, when you add all the values that have been added, they should be equal to this final value of the final product. Since by definition, that is how we define the GDP. Is that clear?
Oh, it's always like that.
Yes. This, when you add all the values that have been added, they should equal the final value, the value of the final good. Because that's how we define the GDP. That is the final value, the market value of the final goods that have been produced. The final goods, not the intermediate goods like flour. Flour is an intermediate good because it is still going to be used for further production. Does that help the class? Hello? Hello?
Yeah.
Oh. So we have answered the first question that says, what is the value added in each stages of
Yes,
production?
sir. Yes,
And
sir.
what
It
is,
does help.
okay. And what is GDP? So we have answered this question, part 1. Vivian, you can read question number 1B. What is question number 1B reading? All right. Ms. Angando, are you in the position to read for us? Question 1B. All right. Question number 1B reads, what is the difference between intermediate goods and final goods and services? What is the difference between intermediate goods and final goods and services? Okay. So what is the difference? What do you think could be the difference? What does the class understand, or what does the class know about the difference? Hello? Hey, have I been logged out? Okay. So the intermediate goods are those goods that are going to be used for further production, whereas the final goods or services are the end goods, the final goods that have been produced. For example, here we talked about the farmer producing wheat. Wheat is not a final product because it is still going to be used to be converted into what? Into flour. Even flour in this case is not a final good because it's still going to be converted into what? Into bread. And the bread shall not be converted into anything. For that reason, bread is the final good. Okay? It's a final good. And then the flour and these other ones are the intermediate goods because they are still going to be used for further production. Does that help? Is that clear? Okay. How does each of the following events, how each of the following events is likely to affect GDP? I would love that you participate, you bring out your thoughts as well. Yeah, it would be a good thing and a nice thing to hear you participate. How each of the following events is likely to affect GDP? Let's start with the first one. Environmental laws that prohibit the firms from emitting pollution. How do you think this could affect GDP? How does it affect GDP? Hello? Hello? If they produce the laws that prohibit the firms from emitting pollution, how does that affect GDP? Or we have forgotten what GDP is?
The GDP, sir, it will be low.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
How does that work? Would you elaborate?
For example, the exportation of milling meal is prohibited, not so. So
Yeah.
if the government can allow that, I'm sure it can bring more foreign exchange. That will improve the economy. And that will need more productivity so that the country is also stable, or there's food security.
Okay. All right, thank you. So when they produce the laws that prohibit the firms from emitting pollution, what will happen is that production will go down because most of the firms, when they're producing, they pollute either the air or the land or somehow. So what would happen to some degree, some production would be affected. You get? Yeah, some production would actually be affected. Okay? So that would lower GDP. If there are strikes by trade union, how does that affect GDP? The strikes by trade unions?
Sir, trade unions are these organizations that regulate or monitors the trade between countries among countries.
The trade unions are more like
NGOs.
no, the organization that represent the workers in their fields of study. For example, you have got Zambia National Teachers Union, ZNUT. What is else? Mining Workers Union, Basic Teachers. Is it BETUS? And Senior Secondary Teachers, STUS, whatever. Like those unions, you know them. They represent those boards. The spokes. They speak on behalf of of the workers. You know those things, right?
No,
You
okay.
call them the
But
trade unions.
still, it will lower the GDP because there'll be less production or no production at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, exactly. So when there are strikes, people are not working, then production will pause. And obviously, that definitely will affect our GDP. There is a discovery of a new seed that increases farm harvests so that we can have a bumper harvest. What do you think would happen to GDP?
Come again, come again.
If there is a discovery of a new seed that increases farm harvest, how does that affect GDP?
Actually, it will increase the GDP in a sense
Okay.
that, for example, like the way we are facing the climate change. Let's say
Yeah.
these seed companies, they start producing, they start producing and promoting early maturity seeds, looking at
Yeah.
in correspondence with the rainfall pattern. So I
Yeah.
think production to still be maintained. Why? Because the seed has been improved and there will be more productivity to farmers.
Yeah. Right. 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 Exactly. Now, can you discuss critically GDP as a measure of economic welfare? How can GDP be used as a measure of economic welfare or the measure of how well the economy is?
Can I try?
Go ahead.
Uh, actually, the question is discuss critical GDP as a measure of economic welfare.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anyway, I'll come back.
All right. So you see, since the GDP, um, you know, it is through GDP that we measure whether the economy of the country is performing well. And actually, we are aware that if the economy is performing well, then the well-being of the people, the standard of living of the people improves. As well, when the economy is, let's say, is like it has got higher growth rate, is growing at a faster rate, you will see that the disposable income of the people will always increase. And in such an environment, the businesses can easily be conducted and the welfare of the people can actually be improved, and the standard of living of the people is improved via the GDP.